like Miami.
Miami, 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 Miami.
It feel like Miami.
Welcome to the Miami Heat Beat podcast. I'm your host, Giancarlo Navas, and with me today, reality check master Tiffany Meeks.
Hey, long time no speak.
Long time no speak. Listen, want to give a quick, before I introduce producer co-founder Brian Goins, I want to give a quick shout out to the Draft Beat boys. We got Frankie, we got Moose, we got Lou. Held it down for a month. Really did, I think, truly some of the best draft coverage that you're going to see for a local team. They were exhaustive. I implore you to check out all those VODs or podcasts or on our podcast app or on YouTube. Please check them out because they were sensational. So I just want to give a shout out to the boys because they did an incredible job. And I had COVID pretty much the whole back half of the month. So I was out of commission. And Brian, that brings us to our second point. And today, is our last day of our Pride drive. We'll keep the donation link up. The link's in Twitch chat, !Pride. If you want to click to donate, we're donating to Trans Social again. Quick kind of housekeeping announcement. We decided not to do a Pride giveaway show this year. I take full responsibility for that. My COVID really it's a very, as you guys have been a part of this, it's a very exhaustive show. And I was unable to do everything, and it shouldn't fall on one or two people to put a Pride show together. And I was truly with fever in bed for days, and we just couldn't do it. So we're going to make it up. We're going to find other stuff to do, but absolutely, please, if you could still find it in your heart to donate to the link, Miami Heat Beat's going to match whatever you guys give. So please check that out. We'll kind of do it interspersed with the show. We love you guys and the support that you guys do. Remember, helping trans people and a lot of the people that don't have the means, especially with everything happening in our country right now, with gay marriage not being safe, with all the Supreme Court decisions, now more than ever, I think that we need to kind of band together as a community and do that. So love you guys. Don't want to make that the whole show, but also if you want to buy the shirts, the Pride shirts this year, really good. Brian did a kick-ass job designing them. 4 Pride stars for 4 rainbow stars for every year of Miami Heat Beat Pride we've done. And there's 11 stars in total representing the 11 years of Miami Heat Beat. It's a shirt with a little bit of heritage and a lot of heart. Brian, again, the GOAT at design. So shout out to Brian and chats. Listen, we're chat's already saying, I hope Brian's ready for apron talk. What are you wearing? What are you wearing, dog?
So this is the first apron. We might have to pull out the second apron if we get that far. We'll see. I don't know. Heat are teetering on the edge of getting to the second apron, but I have a first apron. And right now we got a soft cap going on right now. We'll see if we even get to a hard cap. We got a soft cap going on right now and a first apron. Out. This is where the Heat are at right now. But they could trigger a hard cap. They could trigger a hard cap at the second apron.
Who knows?
See that happen.
Who knows? We'll see. There's a lot to get to today. And so Miami has not done anything. Miami has really re-signed
one thing.
Kevin Love for 2 years, I believe $8 million. Is that correct, Brian?
2 years, $8 million is what has been reported. It seems like there is no player option at second year, so it is going to be 2 years straight. So he'll be on contract for what would seem like the next 2 seasons, which also not having that player option in second year actually makes him no longer, he doesn't have veto rights in order to deny trades. Miami could actually trade him without his consent anymore. It's something that he had over the last 2 seasons. But if he doesn't have a player option that second year and it's no longer a 1-year deal, then yeah, Miami could actually trade him. He's actually basically a trade piece for them come December 15.
Okay. So that's the extent of Miami's offseason. A day and change in.
Oh, wait,
there's more we can get into.
They said don't forget Jay Rich.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Jay
well,
Rich
yeah, we had some player option decisions. So yeah, for like Tiff was mentioning, Jay Rich did agree to his player option that he had from his contract that he signed last season, worth $3 million, which is basically his veteran minimum. In fact, he actually could be making more. I'm surprised he actually did opt in. I'm not gonna lie, because he actually could have made 3.3, $300,000 difference he could have made. this season, and then potentially Miami could have actually formed that $4 million away if it was just a 1-year deal, where they could have actually brought his cap hit number down to $2 million. So Miami could actually save $1 million on their cap hit. But
That's a
he
boatload.
decided to opt in. I mean, I don't know. Maybe Miami wasn't willing to give him a 1-year deal. Maybe that's why he decided to opt in, because he wanted to at least guarantee that he was at least on the roster somewhere, making the minimum.
So
yeah,
regardless, the activity has been lackluster, and I think that the fan base, our audience, people in Miami, it's really funny to go from a parade of the team in Sunrise, the Florida Panthers, to kind of looking at what the Heat are doing, who they were on what felt like similar trajectories, and the Panthers finished the job, and Miami is kind of floundering. And I kind of want to have a little conversation, and we could start with Tiff about how we're feeling, because Tiff, my thing when I saw a lot of the tweets was, kind of Brian and I and some of us on Heat Beat kind of having a bit of an understanding of how the salary cap works. And Tiff, for me, I thought when you traded for Rozier, you gave up any cap flexibility that you were going to have.
Right.
Not that Miami would have cap space, but you'd get under the aprons that Brian's going to explain in more detail later, which allows them to kind of sign more players with their exceptions or take back money in trades. So their offseason move, Tiff, to me, was last trade deadline getting Rozier. That move may or may not have panned out depending on how you view Rozier and how he's going to contribute. So I can't be mad at them for not doing anything, because they already did their move last season. And I'm kind of like, understand that there's frustration in the fan base, Tiff, but I'm like, I think their hands are kind of tied, and I just think that you're mad to be mad.
Yeah, I think I guess I'm more so mad about the Terry deal. Just because we've watched this roster the last couple of years, and I guess you would have been blind to not have seen where they ended up, because they ended up exactly where I thought they were going to end up. So the fact that you made the trade, and then Kyle's contract was expiring, correct? And you also gave up a first.
Yep.
Yeah.
So and you brought a guy in who can't really comfortably play with the other starting guard. So I kind of thought all of that was like, all right, how's this going to work? I think the idea of being mad is, I think people are just, the madness is carrying over from season to season, if we really want to be honest. We've watched them get into this cap hole, and they haven't been able to figure it out. So I think for me personally, I don't see them winning a championship next year, but I think what they need to start to do is they need to start to clean house in a way to get fresh talent in. And it doesn't have to be, all-star, whatever. But if your goal is to keep Jimmy this season, then at least build a team that's collectively more together than what you have right now. Because what you have right now is you've got two guards that need the ball. You've got two guards that don't make a lot of layups. You got two guards that don't play defense. So your backcourt is already in shambles. You've got no point of attack defense, and you've got Jimmy and Bam.
You got no real point guard too.
You got no real point guard. So I kind of feel like, yes, all these names are flying off the board, but if you just brought in a couple of guys who can actually round out a lineup instead of what you have now, you'd still look better than what you looked last year.
Brian, I think what Tiff's saying makes a lot of sense. And I just don't, I understand the frustrations that the fan base has, but what I start to laugh, and I'm not trying to chastise people, because I do agree that sometimes I can be a little bit like, a little bit high and mighty about certain things, because I actually do understand why people are upset. But what I kind of think is funny is, like, you guys wanted Caleb Martin burned at the stake last year, and when he opts out, you act like it's code red. And I was like, it can't be both. You can't say Caleb Martin sucks and they shouldn't play him, and then also say that they would have gotten returned for him in the trade. And then you can't also be mad when he leaves. It cannot be all those things. You know what I mean? So there are degrees to this that matter. And I just think that people want the team to improve. They've seen really 2 straight poor regular season, 3 out of 4 poor regular season performances in the last 4 years, Brian. And I think fans just want a little bit of hope and maybe a pulse from the front office.
I agree with all those points. I kind of tweeted out that I think they haven't really done themselves many favors, particularly the front office, just with be able to manage just their cap book. Like they had an opportunity to at least reset so that one, they could maybe try to get under not just the aprons, but also like give themselves an opportunity where, yeah, they can use the mid level, but they can also get themselves in conversation on any free agent on a sign and trade. And they also did it basically in a way where they just, instead of letting Lowry expire, they gave up a future asset that they could have used in a trade that honestly would have been more of a difference maker than the small needle mover that this Rozier trade ended up being. In a way, it was almost to satisfy the fan base so that, hey, we did something. We tried to do something to salvage last season, but in actuality, it's going to hamstring them for the next 2 seasons because he's going to be making pretty much $25 million this season. And then he does have a partial guarantee, but it's pretty much an extra $25 million next season. He can get up to 26 if he makes the second round, I believe, or wins the first round. I forget what his incentive is. Essentially, he's going to be in the books for the next 2 seasons, at least $25 million. When Miami could have let him walk, they would have had the access to at least, because they weren't a cap space team still. They were still over the salary cap, but they were under the luxury tax. So they would have been a non-taxpayer team, which would have given them the ability to use both the buy-in exception as well as the non-taxpayer mid-level, which is roughly about $13 million that they could have used to go out into the free agent market and spend that. And on top of that, they could have also done sign trades, which would have hard capped them at the first apron, but you're already under it because you're already under the luxury tax. Right now, if that would have happened, Miami could have basically been in the ballgame right now, still need to sign at least 3 players. Let's see, they're 23 under the first apron, 23 million, 33 under the second apron. Had they just let Lowry walk and basically not done that trade, and they would still have up to almost 3 first-round picks that they could trade. It gets a little gray area. We can get into that later if you guys like, but essentially, Miami would have had more assets. They would have had more space to at least try to do some moves right now. So in a way, they've kind of already accepted the fact that Terry Rozier basically was better than any free agent maybe they would have pursued in free agency, which who knows if that's true.
And that's not a crazy thing to think. Now, Tiff and I don't like the move. That's not a crazy thing for the front office to think.
Yeah.
And I'm not here to like carry water for them
or
like anything, but I'm just I think we're just trying to explain how we get to where we are. Because clearly these people who are running this team, they're actually not asleep, despite what the Chiron may say.
Yeah.
And they're actually not stupid, despite what you guys may allege.
But also it now hamstrings them because now that you've added his $25 million books salary this season, you're now basically right up against the second apron. So if you add basically at least the minimum salaries that you would need to field a 14-man roster to sign that last 14 player, whether that's Haywood Highsmith or Caleb Martin, you're basically left right now with 6.7, almost $6.8 million that you can play with to still be under the second apron. There's no hard cap that's hard capping at the second apron, but for all intents and purposes, Miami doesn't want to climb over the second apron because they don't want to trigger any of those penalties, like not be able to aggregate salaries or potentially put them in a position where if they get in second apron multiple seasons, they end up freezing a first round pick that they can't end up trading, which they need all the first round picks they can use to be able to get into the ball game to make any trades, because they really only have kind of one, but really it's almost 2 that they can trade. And then also if you're in there multiple seasons over the second apron, then you basically, if for whatever reason Miami ends up like being a really bad team by like the year 2030, I believe is the year that it would happen, that first round pick, if they've consecutively actually like been over a second apron team for multiple seasons, even if they were they basically like won the lottery, got the number 1 pick, that pick goes right to the very end of the first round. So there's lots of penalties with the second apron now, a year in play, because they basically gave last season like a 1-year freebie for all NBA teams to get their books cleaned up. And Miami had a chance to actually get it really cleaned up had they just let Lowry walk. But because they made the Rozier trade, they're now up against the second apron to the point where they can't really, in a way, feasibly probably bring back Caleb Martin, because he's not going to come back for something that he's making less than what he opted out of, because he opted out of over like $7.3 million. he would have to take something slightly less to come back over multiple seasons for that to be in consideration. So I would say Caleb Martin for sure is gone.
They
Haywood
can't really
Highsmith,
sign and trade him either, right?
they could sign and trade him away to another team. That's not out of the picture. So that's what they did last season with Max Strus, and they obviously weren't
And
able
they got
to
a
do
trade
Gabe
exception
Vincent.
and a second-round pick, correct?
Correct. And that trade exception is about to expire in a few days.
They always do.
And they can't even use it right now because they're over the first apron. So that's another thing. Like that's something else that's triggered this season that wasn't a thing last season. But Miami has 3 trade exceptions they can't even use because they're over the first apron. So that's another point. They could have used any of those trade exceptions had they also let Lowry walk. Like they had exceptions they could have used that they no longer can use right now because they decided that they wanted to basically add another high salary player to the roster. They have 4 guys making over 25 million. That's hard to build a team around. And then you have another guy that's making almost 20 now. So like the rest of the roster is minimum salaries. You can't trade players if you don't have tradable contracts. They don't really have them right now.
Tiff, your deep side said it all.
I mean, okay, so it's done. It's done. Like we are here. This is where we are.
Step Brothers, what's done is done. Are you gonna invest or what?
Exactly. That's it. Boats and hoes. That's it. That is it. This is where we are. All right. So with that being said, Brian.
Yeah.
How are we cleaning it up?
Well, I mean, we'll see what happens next season with Jimmy, but that would be $52.4 million off your books next season if he ends up just what it seems like might happen based off what we last talked about since I think we last potted. He was basically entertaining trying to get the extension. Now there's reports that he's no longer going to sign an extension with any team. So basically he's going to play off this season, his $48.7 million salary. Next season, he has a player option for in the year 2025, 2026 season that he can opt out of $52.4 million. We'll see if he actually does that or not. But if he does, he can sign a 3-year or 4-year deal, 4-year deal with Miami or 3-year deal with any other team that has a cap space to sign him or maybe even facilitate a sign trade with Miami. That's basically his options now because he's not going to sign that extension. We'll see if that happens. I don't really know if there is going to be a market for Jimmy next season. I mean, we've seen reports that maybe teams would give him the max, but you're talking about paying him to his age 39th season, 3 years at the max. I don't know if that's going to be doable. And Miami was hesitant just to give him a 1-year extension with 1 year of new money. Basically, it was a 2-year extension, but it was 1 year of new money that would have took him to his age 38 season. So I don't know. That's going to be an interesting conversation that we'll have to have throughout the rest of the season regarding Jimmy and his future, whether it's here or they end up maybe having to have a conversation where they might have to trade him by the trade deadline and maybe recoup some sort of assets that way. But then again, you're also talking about trading away a guy that's going to be a rental for another team because there's no guarantee that he'll stay with them. So that also limits what they can potentially get back for him in a trade.
Right.
So I mean, that's one conversation we can have is that they can clear up a lot of cap space that way. Because the next highest book on their salary would be Bam making 37 before his extension, which he hasn't finally signed yet, but his extension would kick in the year after next season.
Tatum just signed his. So usually those guys have been, especially the last time, they were pretty concurrent.
Yeah, and that Bam extension kicks in 2026, 2027 season. That's 2 seasons from now where he would start making $51.1 million. So like, yeah, it's crazy. And Tyler still has 3 years left on his contract.
3?
So, yeah, he has this season.
3? That's like almost a presidency.
And there's no player option on it. So he's gonna continue.
3?
Yes. That last season he's gonna be making 33 still.
That's a long, that's a long time.
Duncan actually has there's an out clause on Duncan's
Tiff, your daughter's
going
to be driving by the time Tyler's contract's done. She's going to be driving you around.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, gosh.
I'm going to keep going down the list. So I already talked about Terry Rozier. So he's going to have that option next season where he's not option. He has a $26.6 million contract that might go down a hair, but he's probably going to have the 26 for next season. Duncan actually has he has like a clause in his contract where he can early. Basically, it's like a player option. It's early termination option. It's called something different. Essentially, he can opt out, or Miami also has in its clause where he's only guaranteed like $5 million, like $5.2 million of his contract, and then the rest of it, or maybe it's 9. I can't remember. I have to look back at it. But either way, it's basically between 5 and 9. I had to look at it again because I was looking at it earlier today and now I forgot what it was. But essentially, he has basically part of it's only guaranteed up to a certain proportion. And then the rest of it, they can waive and stretch, and they're basically down to like a $2 or $3 million dead cap hit for the next 3 seasons. But they would in turn end up saving like $17 million off their books. So imagine having Jimmy Butler come off your book, off the 52.4, and then Duncan Robinson having his basically $20 million books for next or cap hit for next season down to about $2 million. You're talking about serious space. You still have Bam, Hero, Rozier on the roster. Potentially, maybe you could trade one of them to another team this season,
like
try to get
wait,
it expiring, and then you can be major players to get. I don't know who will be available next season, but you can have max cap space. That's in the realm of possibility. They don't have it yet, but it's in the realm of possibility that they can position themselves next season if certain things play out, particularly with probably Donovan Mitchell, if he ends up not signing that extension with Cleveland, and maybe he tells them that, hey, I just want to play out the year before I make a decision on my future. Like, he just wants to play it out and see where the chips fall with where he wants to play, because he'll get his money no matter what team he ends up either signing with, like now, because if he could sign it right now with Cleveland, or if they end up trading him, that same contract's still on the table for him no matter where he goes.
Boy.
I like how Brian kind of explained that, because I think that they have avenues to get out of this, but it's complicated. And they have their headphones are knotted, right? They pull out their wired headphones and they're all tangled. And there's a way out of it, but it's very difficult. And I think part of this is because they built this team under a lot of extreme circumstances, not one of which being they did it without cap space, trading for Jimmy Butler from the Sixers, and they did it up against a hard cap, and they had to do all sorts of funny deals, including sending Mo Harkless and a first-round pick just to get him out of here. When they split Hassan Whiteside into Myers Leonard and him. So there was like,
they still haven't paid that debt off, because
that's the one pick.
That's the pick that was supposed to convey 2023. Pick. Yes. So that would have been basically OKC.
Paul George has paid. That was the pick. That was the pick that the Clippers used to get Paul George. Correct. Paul George has been a Thunder. Paul George has been a Clipper, and Paul George has been a Sixer in the amount of time. And that pick still has not conveyed yet. And it was traded for Paul George.
Correct. And that pick right now actually could have been Jaime Jaquez. Like, he could have been a Thunder base. I mean, obviously they would have to select him, but that basically is the pick that Miami was able to keep because they traded KZ Okpala to the Thunder to push back the conveyance of that pick from the year 2023 now all the way to the year 2025, which starts next season, basically. So if Miami ends up making the playoffs, that pick finally gets conveyed to the Thunder. Miami doesn't have a first-round pick next season. Now, if Miami ends up missing the playoffs, then they get to keep their pick one more year. But then it means the following season, 2026, whether they make the playoffs or not, that's unprotected. That goes to OKC no matter what. It has to convey. And it also pushes the pick protection to on their pick that they traded for Terry Rozier to Charlotte. Right now, it's pick protected 2027. But you all see the stepping rule. You can't trade picks back-to-back seasons. So they purposely put a clause in that pick that they sent out to Charlotte where it has to go to the year 2028. And if it gets pushed back from 2027, 2028, meaning if Miami basically misses the playoffs next season, that pick protection that they gave to Charlotte is no longer a pick protection because now it's unprotected in 2028. Meaning if they miss the playoffs next season, they basically have 2 unprotected picks in the year 2026 and 2028 that they can't do nothing about. Like, whether they make the playoffs or miss it, like, they can't do anything about those 2 picks.
And Jimmy might not be here. You have Bam locked up, but the rest of the team, like, you have to feel a competitive team then, because you cannot rebuild during that 3-year stretch, essentially. Tiff, it looks bleak.
Yeah.
Tiff, I want to talk about
all this. Let me just say, all this shit sounds like the last season of Game of Thrones. This is it's just
Yeah.
like
The
I don't
best
know if
thing
you
they could do right now is make the playoffs next season. I'll
right.
give them that.
But Brian, you understand the analogy. This is the last
Yes.
season of Game of Thrones.
A
We
mess.
just throwing stuff up there, praying things happen,
Yep.
and
Tiff?
nothing happened.
I want your thoughts on this because, and I wish we had more off-season stuff to talk about. And we're gonna get through kind of a list. And by the way, if you guys have cap questions for Brian, please just put them in the chat. I've been
I can't see the
bookmarking.
chat right now, so
I'm
you'll have to read
bookmarking
them
all
out
the
to me.
questions so that we can get to
Okay.
them at the end. And Brian can go rapid fire. And we're gonna get through some of the names that they could potentially target. But Tiff,
Yes.
I've been thinking, and I believe I texted you this also. Miami, sometimes you do everything right and you don't win. They have had 3 shots to win a title in 2020 when Bam and Dragic got hurt. In 22 when Lowry got hurt, Jimmy Butler got hurt because Peyton Pritchard hurt him, and PJ and everybody and Max, they had a Tyler, a whole litany. And then last year, in 20, yeah, last year, not last season, full season ago, when they lost in the finals to Denver and Jimmy was hurt against the Knicks. Let's throw out that year because that was a bit of a miracle run. But surely in 2020 and 2022, those were real chances to win the finals that they got really, really, really unlucky about. And I think that they built this team out of nothing through the ashes of previous mistakes, and they had 2 real shots to win the title. They were arguably the better team both those times. I think they were better than the Celtics in 22, and I think they would have beaten the Warriors, and I think they were better than the Lakers in 20. And you can argue that, but at the very least, it's very close. And they did everything right, and they lost anyway. And now they are paying for that because now they don't have that goodwill, Tiff, and they don't have that benefit of the doubt. And now they just look like a bunch of buffoons that keep saying, we were close.
Right,
And everyone's
right.
like, we don't care.
Yeah, right. Right. Nobody cares how close you got. I think for me, because you had 2 instances where you saw everybody get hurt, and then throughout these how many years have we had Jimmy? Is this 5? Where are we? I don't even. I've lost track on how long he's been there.
This is year 5.
You've seen multiple people with multiple injuries over and over. So I think for me, where I feel like they could have stepped up, and I mean ownership, management, after they lost to the Celtics. After they lost to the Celtics, and you saw everyone hurt, you saw Tyler hurt, you saw all these things where you were desperately in need of another guy. And I felt like that was the moment where you put it all together and you go try and grab that other guy. And then you saw it again versus Denver. Desperately needed another guy. So it's kind of like you have all these players that you hope would turn into something, but each season you saw the leaps weren't what you thought they were.
Except one guy.
Who's it? Bam?
Nico.
Well,
only
yes,
dude I think that exceeded expectation.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is the point of him exceeding it didn't lead to a championship. So what I'm saying is you needed a bona fide guy.
Yes.
To go with the other bona fide guys you already have.
And the bona fide guys they had weren't available.
Right. So you needed someone else. Had they had some like you know,
we have breaking news.
2020. Oh,
we have breaking news. The Heat just signed a guy.
No,
really?
Don't tell me. Don't.
Wait. I mean, can I guess who it is? Is it
Yes,
it an incumbent free agent that was on the team last season? Yes or no?
Technically, he was on the team last season. Yes.
Oh,
it better not be Drew Smith.
It's Drew Smith, baby. We're running it back.
You're fucking joking.
Pat Riley
contract?
is awake. He is awake
On a 2-way contract.
Patrick
I thought his deeds
Michael
were done.
Riley
What happened?
is wide awake, baby. We won the offseason. We're so back, babe. Look at chat. Chat's like, we're back. Drew Smith.
Barry Jackson tweeted, he brings back Drew Smith on a 2-way contract after cutting him 5 previous times. The last most recent, because he had that knee injury, they needed to waive him so they could end up freeing up the roster spot that they end up signing Delon Wright. Who actually we even talked about him. He's with Milwaukee right now.
Iris tweets funny. Ira goes, in somewhat of an unexpected twist, the Heat announced that guard Drew Smith is being brought back on a 2-way contract. Alf then quote tweets it saying, they fucking hate me. Tiff,
that's something you don't announce till like later. That's not something you announce the second day of free agency.
Oh my God, no way. Even if you get the deal done early, you tell Drew and his agent, hey Drew, listen. The block's a little hot. We're going to need to announce you at the end. Maybe even a little bit before camp.
I know they wanted. Well, I guess the reason why is because they probably wanted to play in summer league and they need him in the summer league like training camp. I'm assuming that's probably why they signed him though. That's the only reason I can think.
Barry also punctuates his tweets by saying, I'm not kidding. It's just so funny. This man is so tired. Tiff, we said they needed a point guard. We literally said they don't have. They're addressing needs.
They still don't have a point guard. What are you talking about?
Drew Smith.
Still don't have a point guard.
Drew Smith.
He's not a point guard.
He's a point. He's
barely a guard.
Frankie goes, this is my 5th reason.
Is he our new perimeter point of attack defender if we lose Caleb and Haywood? And DeLon now.
I'm sorry, chat. I'm sorry I tricked you. But listen, Drew Smith is back. He's in a Heat uniform.
All right,
hey.
so
hilarious.
Also, he can't have his number 9 back.
Is that what his number was? I honestly don't remember. He's so forgettable.
So Drew Smith comes back and lost his number. Probably lost his number. Probably lost his locker. That man might have had
that dude
every
lost
locker.
his 3-year non-guaranteed contract too because he got hurt.
Listen,
all because of fucking Cleveland.
Tiff, what you got?
Did they ever fix that court?
Struck out on DeLon. Struck out DeLon Wright. They rehabilitated DeLon Wright. DeLon Wright, Tiff, I don't know about you. I thought DeLon Wright was a very productive player on a playoff rotation. Played very hard. Helped them win a game. That game that they won, he played great. Why is he a buck?
That dude led them to almost 20-point comebacks against the Celtics.
Tiff.
I had him, listen, because I know we broke boys. I had him as the starting point guard because we broke boys. I knew we could at least get him.
Damn.
And we were going to ship out either Tyler or Terry, and at least you had a defensive guard in the backcourt.
The Heat went back to their stalker.
It's like they doing that old thing where it's 3 a.m. They drunk and they doing that text. You up?
Was DeLon undrafted?
And
this is terrible.
I don't know. It's a good question. And
no
Chat's
offense
right.
to Drew Smith. No offense to Drew Smith.
Not even the family ties keep you together.
Man.
Yeah. I mean, Darrell Wright was barely with the Heat, to be honest. Like,
how
strong was that family tie?
Darrell Wright was here for like 5 years, bro. That's like something.
Yeah, and then he left to go to Golden State, and I think he was really good there. He came back that one. Remember, he came back that one season we had Joe Johnson, and he didn't play.
Just like Mario Chalmers. Carliana asked, are they selling the team? No, because if they were selling the team, what they would do is like Boston, which would be create a payroll that they don't have to deal with later. And that's not. So actually, these are signs that they're not selling the team. This is actually the opposite of what teams do.
No.
Yeah, that's the opposite.
And if they did sell a team, they're not escaping the second apron. Even if they did sell the team, like,
hey, by the way, shout out to Siobhan. Shout out to Siobhan Beslow tweeting out the gospel right now. Said Kyle was old. His contract might have been a lot to stomach. He was slow, but Kyle, along with Gabe and Max, kept the entirety of the team afloat through various bouts of injury.
Yep.
Now look at us.
Hey,
now
Kyle's still technically a free agent. We could bring him back on a minimum.
Now look at us.
I would kill for any of those 3 guys.
Right.
If any of those 3 guys, if the notification hit that any of, maybe not Kyle because people still hate him, but Max and Gabe, if there was
People
the
would not
Miami
hate
Heat,
Kyle coming back on a vet minimum.
if any of those 3 guys were to come back, I think everyone would be thrilled. If Gabe or Max came back, party time.
But here's the thing. You shouldn't need them to come back. That's the biggest problem. You people who work their asses off, yeah, they may not have been as talented as some of the ones you have now, but they proved to you they were harder workers than most of the people you have right now. So now you got who I don't how many roster spots we got open. Like I don't even understand what's happening. This whole Drew Smith thing has just knocked me out.
No, that's a good question, Tiff. I think maybe we should have led off with that. They have technically 11 roster spots signed. One of them is being taken up by Lionel Robinson. He has a $2.1 million salary for next season that gets guaranteed on July 15th. So technically, Miami could waive him right now. There'd be no penalty, no cap hit charge or dead cap hit charge. His contract would be just off the books, and that would bring them down to 10. They have to get to 14. They haven't actually signed Pelle Larsson. That would actually bring them back up to 11. So in a way, they have almost 12 right now, but it could be down to 11. And that's assuming that they would sign Pelle Larsson to the main roster. They could potentially have him as a 2-way right now, but technically they've already used up all 3 2-way spots because they have Keyshawn Johnson, Zion Poland, and now Drew Smith. So in my opinion, I think you can put a pencil in that Pelle Larsson's going to be on that 15-man roster.
I can't even pronounce his name, and he's on the roster.
Get ready, Tiff. Get ready for 40 minutes of whoever that is.
And he's going to be cheap. Like if they sign him, his contract would start at the lowest at $1.1 million, which is cheaper than the vet minimum, which is just over $2 million.
We have Alex in chat wanting Fultz and Sadiq Bey.
Martel Flutz?
We have somebody else asking for Breontae Weber.
I think Breontae Weber's still overseas.
Oh, Tiff, I'll take Bey in an instant.
I'll take Bey. I'll take Bey hands down.
Sadiq Bey is going to sign for a minimum. I think what could happen with Sadiq Bey is if we somehow strike out on Highsmith and we strike out on Caleb, which I think it's a given on Caleb. But if we also strike out on Highsmith, I think Miami could maybe circle back and what they could use, because I remember I was telling you guys earlier in the show that they're still like right around $6.8 million under the second apron if they try to get to a 14-man roster on just signing minimums. What they could potentially do is maybe they could use their one mid-level exception that they actually can use, but it's only worth $5.3 million right now. It's the taxpayer mid-level. It hard caps them at the second apron. I might have to bring out the second apron, but it would hard cap them at the second apron, and they could potentially offer him a deal that starts at $5.3 million. That's more than the veteran minimum, which is $3 million. Not even $3 million for him. And it should be like two change.
I need you to explain something to me, because now I'm just kind of like, how are we this close to you putting on a third apron, and this is the roster?
How?
I'm sorry.
I have a thing you could share your screen. You want to do that?
But I'm saying the players that we have. How are we this close to the third apron, which probably don't exist? But how?
We'll see in the next season.
The Heat are going to be in such a cat mess that they're going to make a new apron.
They're going to have to make a third apron for the Boston Celtics.
I don't understand.
That's a new owner's problem.
Do either one of you guys think we're going to make, at this point, maybe even just make moves to kind of get off of some of this money?
Brian, is that true? So using the taxpayer automatically gets to the
it doesn't
apron?
Automatically get into the second apron. It basically it prevents Miami from even crossing the second apron, basically.
So it makes the second apron a hard cap.
Yes, exactly. That is essentially what I'm doing right now. Hard cap.
He's capped.
Yeah.
They cannot cross.
They cannot cross the second apron.
Oh, Tiff, you ready for Patty Mills? Chat's right. Oh God. Hold on. I gotta be honest with you. Patty Mills looks like an outstanding man. Looks like a very nice person.
He looks very nice. Yes.
Don't ever want to watch him play basketball for my team.
I'd love to get by me with him, sit and talk, but like I don't know what's happening.
No, I just don't. I seems like a
I
very nice professional man, but I don't want him ever to play basketball for my team again.
so this is what I just
missed,
don't
I
get.
missed all that. What'd you guys say?
We're talking about Patty Mills, just
Patty Mills.
potentially.
Why
I
are we
just
talking about Patty Mills?
even if we shouldn't be. Let's don't
What
even
else?
bring it up.
What else? What else is there, guys?
But here's the thing. What's the chances of them just looking at what they have now and saying, "Oh, maybe we don't need Tyler and Terry. Maybe we need to move one of these guys and bring in, I don't know, a forward or anything. I don't know, bring in lunch." Like, I don't understand what's happening.
Yes, chef.
Like, I do you guys think like they'll, I don't know,
I mean,
do
Tiff, what's going to
anything?
happen is there's eventually going to be no cat space and barely any free mid-level exception money out there on the market. There's going to be talent still out there that they can get at the bargain bin.
I
that
like
they
this
can
list.
convince to get them on a 1-year minimum contract and try to rebuild their value because there will be playing time in Miami, especially if
Right.
they miss out on both Caleb Martin and Highsmith if they end up going somewhere else.
If
There'll be
they lose
plenty of
Highsmith,
minutes.
not to cut you off, Brian, I think the one thing I will be really mad at if they lose Haywood Highsmith, because Caleb, I think with the conference finals performance, I think that even if he wasn't that great last season, I think that a lot of teams are going to look at that and say, you know what, fuck it, I'll throw money at that guy
Right.
if we
Right.
feel like we're close. Haywood, that's a guy that you had in your system for a long time. And the fact that they didn't lock him up on a good deal before, I think, and Nekias even tweeted it during the playoffs when they made the finals. He's like, hey, he's not playing a lot. Every time that guy touches the floor, some good stuff happens. They need to lock him up, pun intended. They never did. And if they the one guy that I'll be like, you fucked that up is him. Because again, Caleb, they got Caleb on a great deal.
Right.
And that was always, everybody knew the second he looked that good, he would be an idiot for opting in. The fact that they got him on that deal for as long as they did was exceptional work by the front office. And you could say they should have traded him, whatever. I don't give a shit about that. They lose Haywood Haywood was never going to get you a lot in a trade. The fact that they didn't lock that contract up, Tiff, I know you probably agree with me, is absolutely indefensible.
They technically did. I'm looking back at his Spotrac contract. So they had him on a 3-year contract that I remember them being like all non-guaranteed at one point. They eventually guaranteed each of them, but he had a 3-year contract signed for $4 million. So he was on the very cheap minimum because he had no really NBA experience aside that 1 year he was in Philly. But he broke into the NBA in 2018 on a 1-year contract with Philly. And then he ended up signing some 2-ways basically between Miami. He actually had a couple of 10 days. And I remember that actually happened because that was that year where there was a lot of players out with COVID. They end up allowing like a hardship exception. So Miami was able to bring back Haywood on those 10-day contracts a couple of times before they actually gave him a 3-year contract. But then the 3-year contract, they were able to get his bird rights. So Miami could sign him to whatever contract they want. It's not like they're limited to the $5 million exception. Like they could sign him literally to whatever contract. They could offer him a max if they want. Problem is that they don't want to cross that second apron.
Right.
And that second apron right now, they're teetering right now of $6.8 million if they sign basically another million player. They keep Orlando Robinson. They sign Pele Larson
Why?
to the smallest contract that they can.
Why do they need to keep Orlando Robinson?
I mean, Orlando Robinson's making 2.1. The vet minimum's 2.08. So even if they let him go and sign another minimum player,
I'd rather do that.
The difference is negligible. So
if you're done with Orlando,
difference.
I'm done with Orlando.
I'm
Okay.
done.
And then
I've seen enough.
I'm done. I'm tired.
And then they would be that much difference between that and what they could offer Haywood as a starting salary.
I love
that's
Alex
without a trade.
Cat.
Like if they trade any of these guys and making a lot of money, like Tyler, Rozier, Robinson, whole different ballgame.
See, and this is what I was getting at. Like, do you guys think that they will try to move at least someone to try to like?
I think if their intention was to bring back Haywood and bring back Caleb, I think that deal would have already been done.
Okay.
I don't like the sound of that.
I don't either, but I do understand where you're coming from.
I actually do as well. It
That would have been
really
done before
Right.
free agency kicked off. There was a period
so.
right before the draft, basically right after they were eliminated. They could have done this trade.
Also, Alex also thinks that they're gone. Troppy baby in chat. So one thing I will say is that I actually don't blame them for overpaying Caleb, and I think that they have learned their lesson about overpaying guys. I love Max Strus. I think that it's a total understandable position to not want to pay Max Strus what the Cavs paid him, because the Heat have been burned by overpaying guys who are like fourth, fifth, sixth guys on a team. And you need a lot of those guys, and I think that when the time comes, they will pay. I think Cleveland was in a unique position that they really needed to kind of boost them and win a playoff series. And Max Strus absolutely was a huge difference maker in Cleveland, making it out of round one and not making it out. They had a really, but like, I don't blame Miami for being like, I'm not going to pay Caleb Martin $12 million a year. That's just not what I'm going to do.
They got him on a bargain, and right after
Right.
his 2-way deal was up, they were able to convert him to
Well,
a standard
because
contract.
Tiff,
it's also smart with his injury history. Like, let's not keep compounding things where they are. Like, he has an injury history. We watched him have no explosiveness over half of the season. Like, we all watched it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, while we all love him and we love watching him play and like how he boosted us on certain nights, I think you have to start, if you're acquiring players, you need to start getting guys who are relatively healthy, who have been healthy over a period of time, not guys who have bad knees, bad ankles. Like, at some point, you just got to start saying no. You can't keep doing it. You have a team full of bad knees, bad backs, bad necks. Like, you have all of that right now. You didn't need to add one more person to it.
Which is also why I don't want Zach LaVine right now.
By the way, Greg Sylvander of 5 Reasons. I hate calling him Greg. Leif tweets out, Leif, of all people, saying this: to sign Drew Smith right now appears largely tone deaf to the fans who follow every move, even if it's really not a big deal. And that, my friend, when even Leif is saying that, you know that it's like, I mean, we joked. You announced that later, Tiff. To the kind of the point we're just saying, like,
word for word, bar for bar,
they have shown that they can find guys. You know what I mean? That you don't have to overpay Caleb, because you'll find another Caleb. What bothers us about Highsmith is, like, I don't know. You could have kept them for cheap, I feel.
Right.
Again, I'm not in negotiation. Maybe Haywood Highsmith's going to go for a full mid-level exception, and at that point, it'd be malpractice for Haywood to not take that money to take.
No, he has to.
He has to, if that's what he's going to get. I don't think he's going to get that. I think it'll be around $5 million personally, annually, something like that. I could see Haywood.
Wait. You think Haywood's going to get $5 million a year?
Something 5 to 7.
I got him at 10.
I think that's a lot.
I think it's a lot too, but
and if that's the number, if you're the Heat, you're just like, we can't do that. And I should be honest with you, I don't think they should do that either, because I think Haywood has his issues kind of staying on the court offensively. So, he's a guy that I think will eat innings for you, and maybe he'll get there. And listen, they're good at drafting. They'll find other guys, but it's just frustrating. And I think that they need to, like, pick a struggle. They have to either really lean into, like, the finding of guys, getting guys in the system. Like, it can't be like a parade of Drew Smith again. You know what I mean? Like, we knew that Max, I use the example all the time of Max, because even when Max wasn't ready, you knew that he was going to be ready, like, one day, because you saw the talent. You saw, like, oh, I see what they see. With Duncan, you know what I mean? Like, you kind of saw, like, that guy can shoot the fuck out of the ball. I think he exceeded blew every expectation, just like Max did. But, like, Gabe as well, like, those guys that don't get cut 5 times in a row.
Right.
You know what I mean?
There's something to be said if we keep asking you to leave.
And it's like they just keep recycling that. There's Drew Smith. Brian, who's the other guy that they always sign over and over again? It used to be Briante Weber. It's Drew Smith, and there's another guard. I don't remember. I'm putting it on the spot. But regardless, it's just kind of frustrating. So I like that other list that Alex sent. I put it on the screen earlier. Just trying to get out of here. Fultz, Trent, Chris Dunn, Gary Harris, Dennis Smith Jr. I kind of like Dennis Smith. Patrick
I like Dennis
Beverly, Monte Morris. Like, those are your guards. Wings, Josh Okogie, Kyle Anderson, Sadiq Bey, Covington, Bullock, Marcus Morris, bleh, KJ Martin, bleh, Torian Prince, Burks, Crowder again, bleh, THT, bleh, Lonnie Walker, Gordon Hayward, bleh, Javonte Green.
I'll say something. I think there's something there with Lonnie Walker. I think but as for a bench guy, but I'm just saying, like,
did he go to Miami?
He went to University of Miami.
Yeah.
Fuck it, bring him and bring Dennis Smith. Let's do it.
But
I'd be
those
down.
are, you know, I think we are where we are, and I think this is where we're going to be.
Yeah, I mean, they were minimum players last year, so it's definitely a realm possibility for both of them.
I just think I'm not concerned about the minimum guys. I'm concerned about the guys that are supposed to get you wins.
All we can do is talk about the minimum guys because these dudes broke.
That's all we can get right now. we got fun coupons right now that we could spend.
Oh no, I'm concerned about our guys that are supposed to get us.
Those
wins.
guys need to stay healthy and produce and somehow fit and be actually like a good offense and somehow survive defensively without two of your best wing defenders that probably aren't going to be here next season. So
Tiffany Meeks.
A lot to ask on the guys making $25 million and up.
Tiffany Meeks and Brian Goins. I would like you to close your eyes. I want you to picture, close your eyes, Brian. I want you to picture a January night in the NBA. Heat Knicks. Miami throws a bench lineup of Kevin Love, of Drew Smith, of Josh Richardson, and they have to defend Mikal Bridges and Jalen Brunson. Yep. Look at that. Look at that. Josh Richardson's going to have 3 turnovers in a row. Alpha's going to throw his phone at a television. Chat's like, G, stop, I'm on the ledge. By the way, I texted Alf. I just sent Alf the link to this call, and I said, if you want to shit talk Drew, he has not answered. We would have had some primo grade A content if he had joined. But guys,
how do we get a signing while we were live? And it was Drew.
Honestly, beautiful. Perfect. I wouldn't have had it any other way.
Oh, I was going to ask, was there any other questions we want to answer right before we close?
Yeah. Anybody have one person asked, can we do a sign and trade with Caleb? You already answered that. I think you did a really chat says peace out after that visualization. Brass would have killed me for that. Brass might have actually quit.
He would have lost it.
If Brass still worked here, he would have quit. Brass might start working here again just to quit after that.
Oh God.
Listen. Oh, by the way, Alex, I noticed that your list of players did not include Justice Winslow at wing.
Justice better.
Tiff, I gotta be honest with you. If they want to make me happy this offseason, they just bring Justice. I take it. Troppy's in. Alex is in. Chat says no. I think I'm in. Tiff, are you in? Justice, kick the cans one more time.
I mean, it can't be any worse.
Chat's right. They said Justice hates us. He does.
Although Justice honestly probably would last like 2 days before he was on the injury report too.
Oh no, 100%. No, you know what would happen? He'd his first game, he'd be like 1 for 7, right? And the one is like a turnaround jump shot at the end of the shot clock that he had no business taking. He smokes 4 layups and misses 3 threes or some shit. Then his second game,
got guys that can't make layups.
Second game, he looks good. He's handling the ball. He's defending. He's 4 for 8. And you're with a 3, and you're like, wait a second, are we back? Next game, back injury on the injury report. Don't see him for another 2 months. Frankly, that might be Jimmy Butler's start to the season. A lot of this can be elixed if Jimmy Butler decides to play 70 games and he's all NBA, and you'll see that the team looks a lot better because Jimmy Butler's one of the best players in the NBA. Whether that's going to happen, he's on a contract year. We'll see. We're going to bring you off-season coverage as it comes. And I know that we're not all very happy right now, but at least we can be unhappy together. So we got you guys down. We'll bring you every news update that we can. We'll go live for an emergency if there is a big signing. I think next week we're going to tend to talk more about what they've done. Maybe we'll go live later this week. We'll see if kind of talk about what's there to be done and what other teams have done, because we didn't really get into Paul George to the Sixers, Klay Thompson to the Mavs.
Plenty of the offseason. We can talk about the other
Plenty of
moves.
offseason. Please remember,
Where
guys,
Miami falls in the Eastern Conference and stuff like that. Yeah.
our Pride link is in chat. !Pride. If you can donate to Trans Social, if you can find it in your heart, even if you have every dollar counts. Miami Heat has already committed $600, and we want to increase that. We'll try to match as much as you guys can put, so we can do a good thing for the trans community, especially during a really difficult time. Close out Pride Month. Also, our t-shirts at shop.miamiheatbeat.com. All the proceeds go to Trans Social, and you get a cool shirt and a really cool piece of Miami Heat Beat memorabilia and history. So shout out to you guys for always showing up. We've always done a great job with these donation drives, and we love you guys, and we love our community. So shout out to you. Shout out to Drew Smith. Shout out to Pat Riley, who's apparently awake right now. And hopefully he's now awake and make some calls. So appreciate you guys, and we will talk to you either this week or early next week as we continue our off-season coverage. Peace.